the Queen of Predator Planet, by Jansen Davies. Chapter 1. The Shuttle to Nowhere. Lieutenant Betty Blaze Dupre sat alone in the common area of the Galactic Federation transport shuttle, her back straight, boots planted, and eyes scanning the flickering holoscreen in front of her. The briefing materials glowed with sterile blue light, maps of contested sectors, alien species profiles, and a rotating emblem of the Federation's Joint Training Initiative. She absorbed every detail, not because she expected to survive the mission, but because she refused to die stupid. The shuttle's interior was a cold lattice of steel and synth glass, humming with the low thrum of interstellar engines. Around her, clusters of alien cadets murmured in their native tongues, clicks, growls, and guttural syllables that twisted like knives in the air. None of them sat near her. None of them wanted to. A Martian officer, tall, crimson-skinned, with a crown of bone ridges and eyes like molten copper, stood at the far end of the room, watching her. His name was Commander Thielen. He didn't bother to hide his disdain. Neither did the others. Blaze had seen that look before, on Earth, in the outer colonies, in every backwater outpost where humans were tolerated but never trusted. She was used to it. She didn't flinch, she didn't speak. She studied, but the silence broke like glass. A tray clattered to the floor. A hulking reptilian cadet snarled something in his native dialect and lunged. Blaze was on her feet in an instant, flipping the table between them and drawing her sidearm. But it wasn't just one attacker. It was all of them. They came at her in a wave, claws, fists, venomous spines. Blaze fought like her name, fast, furious, and unrelenting. She shattered a jaw with her elbow, drove a boot into a thorax, and fired stun rounds into the crowd. Screams echoed, blood sprayed. For a moment it looked like she might win. But there were too many. A needle jabbed her neck. Cold fire spread through her veins. Her vision blurred. Her limbs betrayed her. She collapsed, breath ragged, as the Martian stepped over her body. Human fragility, he sneered. So predictable. She tried to speak, but the tranquilizer dragged her under. Darkness swallowed her. When she awoke, she was weightless. Alone, encased in the humming silence of an escape pod. Through the viewport, stars wheeled past like indifferent gods. A planet loomed ahead, dark, jagged, and wreathed in storm. Predator Planet. Quarantined. Forbidden. A death sentence. Blaze's last thought before the pod breached the atmosphere was not fear. It was fury. Chapter 2. The Fall and the Flame. The escape pod slammed into the surface of Predator Planet like a meteor, carving a trench through obsidian soil and igniting the sky with fire. Inside, Blaze clawed her way out of the restraints, blood trickling from her temple, her breath ragged and hot. The pod systems were fried. No comms, no weapons, no hope. She kicked open the hatch and stepped into a world that felt like a fever dream. The sky was a bruised violet, streaked with lightning and the shimmer of twin moons. Jagged mountains loomed in the distance, their peaks crowned with spires of bone and metal. The air smelled of sulfur, ash, and something primal, like the breath of a predator just before it strikes. Blaze staggered forward, boots crunching on black sand. Her body screamed with pain, but her mind was clear. She was alive, and she was not alone. They came at dusk, tall, armored figures cloaked in refractive camouflage, eyes like molten gold, blades that hummed with plasma. They didn't speak. They didn't hesitate. They surrounded her in silence, weapons raised. Blaze didn't run. She stood her ground, fists clenched, gaze defiant. One of them stepped forward, a towering female with a crown of jagged horns and a ceremonial blade etched with glowing runes. She tilted her head, studying Blaze like a puzzle. Then, without warning, she struck. Blaze dodged, barely. The blade grazed her arm, searing flesh. She countered with a punch that landed squarely on the predator's chest. The others hissed, but the leader laughed, a deep, resonant sound that echoed across the valley. She spoke in a language Blaze didn't understand, but the meaning was clear. Challenge accepted. They fought beneath the moons, a brutal ballet of fists, blades, and blood. Blaze was outmatched, outnumbered, and nearly broken. But she didn't yield. She didn't beg. She burned. When she collapsed, the leader knelt beside her and placed a clawed hand on her chest. "You are flame," she said in broken standard. "You do not die. You rise." Then everything went dark. Blaze awoke in a temple carved from polished bone. Her wounds were healed. Her body was stronger. Her mind was sharper. The predators had not killed her. They had claimed her. She was no longer prey. She was becoming one of them. Chapter 3. The Throne of Teeth. Blaze stood at the edge of a cliff, overlooking a valley etched by war and time. Below, predator warriors trained in silence, blades flashing, bodies moving in perfect synchronicity. No commands, no hesitation, just instinct and ritual. She had spent weeks among them, learning their ways. The predators didn't speak often, but when they did, their words were sacred. Every gesture had meaning. Every scar told a story. They didn't lie. They didn't flatter. They didn't pretend. Blaze found it unnerving and liberating. Her mentor, the horned warrior who had first challenged her, was called Vera. She taught Blaze how to fight with predator blades, how to read the silent signals of their language, and how to survive the trials of the hunt. Blaze passed each test with blood and grit. The predators began to watch her differently. Not as prey, not as an outsider, as one of their own, still a child in their eyes. One night, Vera led her to the Temple of Ascension, a towering structure built from the bones of fallen champions and the wreckage of ancient ships. Inside, a throne sat atop a dais of jagged teeth, surrounded by holographic flames and ancestral sigils. "This is the seat of the Queen," Vera said. "It has been empty for a generation." Until now. Blaze stared at the throne. It pulsed with energy, as if alive. She felt it in her bones, in her blood. A calling, a challenge. "You want me to rule?" she asked. Vera nodded. "It is a prophecy. One day a stranger with flaming hair will come to lead us. We have waited 1,000 years to find that being. Someone worthy. You have survived. You have fought. You have not lied. You are flame. You are truth." Blaze stepped forward, heart pounding. She placed her hand on the throne. It responded. The flames surged. The sigils glowed. The predators outside the temple dropped to one knee. Blaze Dupre, once a discarded soldier, was now something else. Not a queen by birth, a queen by fire. Chapter 4. The Treaty of Teeth. 5 years later, the diplomatic shuttle descended through the storm-choked skies of Predator Planet, its hull shimmering with Federation insignia and false promises. Inside, a delegation of alien diplomats sat in uneasy silence. At their center was Minister Tielan, the Martian commander who had once led the assault on Blaze Dupre and jettisoned her into space like refuse. He didn't remember her name. He didn't care. Predator Planet had become a strategic obsession. Its warriors were undefeated. Its technology was unreplicable. The Federation wanted peace or control. Tielan wanted both. The shuttle landed in a courtyard of obsidian and flame. Predator guards awaited them, tall, cloaked, and silent. They didn't speak. They didn't blink. They escorted the diplomats through corridors carved from bone and metal, past murals of ancient hunts and holograms of fallen champions. The palace was alive with tension. At last they entered the throne chamber, and there she was, seated upon the throne of teeth, flanked by predator elites, dressed in ceremonial armor etched with fire and truth, Queen Blaze. Thilan squinted. "Is that a human?" The predators hissed. Blaze raised her hand. The room fell silent. She rose from the throne, her gaze locked on Thilan. "You don't recognize me," she said. "That's expected. Humans, as you say, all look alike." Thilan opened his mouth, but the predator surged forward, blades drawn, eyes burning. Blaze raised her hand again. The predators froze. She stepped closer. "5 years ago, you injected me with a tranquilizer and launched me into space. You thought I'd die. You thought I was weak." Thilan stammered. "It was a misunderstanding, a tactical decision." The other diplomats inched away from him. Blaze smiled. "Thank you." The room went still. "If you hadn't betrayed me," she said, "I would never have found my true calling. These apex predators, these so-called monsters, are more honest than any Federation species I've met. They don't lie. They don't betray. They don't pretend." She placed her hand on the head of a nearby predator. It purred. The others joined in, a chorus of primal affection. Blaze turned to the diplomats. "Your treaty proposal will be reviewed. I'll give you my decision tomorrow. Tonight you will be given quarters in the palace. Rest. Reflect." The predators parted, revealing a corridor of firelight and silence. The diplomats bowed. Thilan hesitated. Blaze didn't look back. She had already begun the hunt. Chapter 5. The Knife in the Flame. The palace corridors whispered with firelight and silence. Predator guards stood motionless at every junction, their cloaks shimmering with refractive camouflage, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. The diplomats had been given lavish quarters, obsidian chambers with bone-carved furnishings and holographic murals of ancient hunts. But Commander Thilan was not resting. He paced like a caged beast, his molten eyes flickering with calculation. The Queen was human. That was intolerable. The predators revered her. That was dangerous. And the treaty, he knew, would never be signed while she ruled. He summoned the other diplomats under the guise of a midnight strategy session. They gathered in a shadowed alcove, their voices low, their faces tense. "She's a liability," Thilan hissed. "We kill her, the predators will be leaderless. They'll be desperate. They'll sign anything." One of the diplomats, a wiry Androsian with silver skin, shook his head. "You saw how they reacted when she spoke. They worship her." "They're animals," Thilan snapped. "They respect strength. If we strike fast, we can control the narrative." Thilan glared at the others. They were silent. Then the Androsian nodded reluctantly. A plan was formed. They would use knockout gas, a Federation compound designed to incapacitate non-humanoid nervous systems. They would flood the Queen's wing, bypass her security locks, and strike while she slept. Thilan would wield the blade himself. A ceremonial dagger, pulsing with plasma, forged for ritual assassination. They moved through the palace like ghosts, their steps silent, their weapons ready. But something was wrong. No guards, no resistance. The corridors were empty. They reached the Queen's chamber. Thilan bypassed the lock with a stolen code. The door slid open. Inside, Blaze lay on a ceremonial bed, her armor folded neatly beside her. Her eyes were closed, her breathing slow. Thilan raised the dagger and plunged it down. The blade passed through her body like smoke, a hologram. The room shimmered. Predators uncloaked from every corner, their blades raised, their eyes burning with fury. Blaze stepped from the shadows, her real form radiant with firelight and truth. "Did you think I wouldn't see this coming?" she asked, voice calm. Thilan froze. Blaze turned to her guards. Take them. Send a transmission to the Federation. She paused. Send more diplomats, she said. These were hard to swallow. The predators purred in agreement. The hunt was far from over. Chapter 6. The Teeth of Justice. The Predator Tribunal was held beneath the twin moons in an amphitheater carved from volcanic glass and ancient wreckage. Fires burned in bone-cradled braziers. The air pulsed with silence and judgment. The captured diplomats were bound in ceremonial restraints, not chains, but living tendrils of predator tech that responded to fear and deceit. They squirmed, they sweated, they lied. Blaze stood at the apex of the tribunal, cloaked in obsidian armor, her crown forged from the blade that once tried to kill her. She didn't speak at first. She let the silence do the work. Predators lined the arena, their eyes glowing, their claws twitching. They didn't cheer. They didn't jeer. They waited. Minister Thielen was dragged forward. His molten eyes flickered with defiance, but his voice trembled. "This is barbaric," he spat. "We're diplomats." "You can't." Blaze raised a hand. "You betrayed your oath," she said. "You plotted murder under the guise of peace. You violated sacred ground." Thielen sneered. "You're nothing but a human. You don't understand galactic law." Blaze stepped down from the dais. "I understand it better than you ever will." She turned to the crowd. "Predators do not lie. They do not betray. They do not pretend. Their justice is not vengeance. It is truth." Vera stepped forward, holding a ceremonial blade etched with the names of fallen queens. She offered it to Blaze. Blaze took it, but she did not strike. Instead, she turned to the crowd. "Let the predators decide." The tendrils binding the diplomats pulsed. The arena darkened. A holographic interface appeared, displaying the diplomats' actions, words, and intentions, recorded by Predator Tech, unfiltered and unedited. The truth was laid bare. The crowd hissed, not with rage, with clarity. Thielen collapsed to his knees. Blaze returned the blade to Vera. "Let them live," she said. "Let them return to the Federation. Let them carry the truth of their betrayal." Vera nodded. "Mercy is strength." Blaze turned to the diplomats. "You came for a treaty. You leave with a lesson. Predator Planet does not negotiate with liars. It remembers." The tendrils released. The diplomats were escorted to their shuttle, silent and broken. Above them, the twin moons burned, and Blaze stood alone on the dais, a queen not of blood, but of flame. Chapter 7. Echoes of the Throne. The transmission from Predator Planet arrived in the Federation's central command like a blade through silk. It was brief, unedited, unmistakable. It showed the plotting, the treachery, and the assassination attempt. Queen Blaze, seated upon the throne of teeth, surrounded by purring predators, her voice calm and clear. "Send more diplomats." These were hard to swallow. The room fell silent. Admirals, ministers, and intelligence officers stared at the screen, their expressions frozen somewhere between disbelief and dread. The Martian delegation had failed. Worse, they had been spared. That was not mercy. That was a message. Across the galaxy, the footage spread like wildfire. On outer colonies, humans whispered her name with reverence. On Martian outposts, officials scrambled to rewrite the narrative. On Predator-aligned worlds, the transmission was replayed as ritual, an affirmation of truth and flame. Blaze Dupre had become more than a soldier. She was myth. In the Predator Palace, Blaze stood at the edge of the throne chamber, watching the stars through a jagged viewport. Vira approached, her blade sheathed, her posture respectful. "They fear you," Vera said. Blaze nodded. "Good. But I don't want fear. I want clarity." Vera tilted her head. Fear is clarity in the right hands. Blaze turned. Then let's give them both. She summoned her council, predator tacticians, lore-keepers, and emissaries. Together they began drafting a new treaty. Not one of submission, not one of compromise. A treaty of truth. Predator Planet would remain sovereign. Its warriors would remain undefeated. But its queen would speak, and when she spoke, the galaxy would listen. In the Federation's war rooms, analysts debated her intentions. Was she building an empire, a rebellion, a sanctuary? None could agree, but all understood one thing. Blaze Dupre had survived the void, and now she ruled it. Chapter 8. The Hunt Beyond Stars. The Predator emissaries departed at dawn, their ships cloaked in refractive armor and ritual silence. Each vessel bore the sigil of Queen Blaze, an emblem forged from flame and bone, recognized now across half the galaxy. Their mission was not conquest, it was observation. Blaze stood on the palace balcony, watching the ships vanish into the storm-wrapped sky. Vera joined her, silent as ever. "They will be seen," Blaze said. "They will be feared," Vera replied. Blaze nodded. "Good. Let them learn what fear looks like when it walks in truth." The emissaries arrived in Federation space like ghosts. They did not speak unless spoken to. They did not lie. They did not negotiate. They watched. They listened. They recorded. On Earth, a Predator emissary attended a diplomatic summit in Geneva, standing motionless behind a delegation of humans who whispered nervously. On Mars, another walked through a military installation, unarmed and unchallenged, its presence a silent indictment. On the moons of Andros, a Predator stood in the center of a trade bazaar, unmoving, as merchants argued over what it meant. The message was clear. Predator Planet was not isolated. It was listening. Back in the palace, Blaze reviewed the reports. Each emissary transmitted raw footage, unfiltered, unedited, sacred. She watched politicians squirm, generals posture, civilians stare. She saw fear. She saw curiosity. She saw the cracks. She summoned her council. "It's time," she said. "We offer the treaty." Not as a plea, as a reminder of our power. The council nodded. The treaty was simple. Predator Planet would remain sovereign. Its emissaries would walk freely. Its queen would speak when truth was required. In return, the Federation would be allowed to listen, not command, not control. Listen. The treaty was transmitted across the stars, and Blaze waited, not for approval, for reaction. Chapter 9. The Mirror of Lies. The Federation's reply arrived cloaked in diplomacy and veiled threats. A delegation of envoys, new faces, polished voices, and carefully curated smiles, requested an audience with Queen Blaze. They claimed to represent peace. They claimed to speak for unity. Blaze read their transmission in silence. Vera stood beside her, watching the Queen's expression shift from curiosity to contempt. "They wear masks," Blaze said, "but Predator tech sees through masks." The envoys were granted entry. They arrived in ceremonial robes, bearing gifts forged in Federation factories, synthetic jewels, hollow promises, and a treaty rewritten to favor control. They bowed low before the throne of teeth. Blaze did not rise. She let the silence stretch. One envoy, a human named Elian Markov, stepped forward. "Your Majesty," he said, voice smooth and oily, "we come in peace. We come to honor your sovereignty." Blaze tilted her head. "Do you?" Elian hesitated. We wish to collaborate, to share knowledge, to build trust." Blaze gestured. A Predator emissary activated a hologram, footage of Federation warships circling Predator space, of covert transmissions intercepted by Predator scouts. of lies dressed as diplomacy. The envoys paled. "You speak of trust," Blaze said, "but you prepare for war, for conquest," Elian stammered. We didn't authorize—" Blaze stood. The predators hissed. She raised her hand. Silence. "I offered you truth," she said. "Not submission, not silence. Truth." She stepped down from the dais, her voice low and clear. "Predator Planet does not fear war. It does not crave it. But it will not be deceived." Elian bowed his head. "Then what do you ask of us?" Blaze looked past him at the stars beyond the palace walls. "Stop pretending," she said. "Stop lying. Stop hiding behind treaties written in ink that burns with deception." She turned to her council. "Let them return. Let them carry this final glimpse of what we really are. We are the apex predators." The envoys were escorted out, their gifts untouched. And Blaze stood alone again, her throne pulsing with fire. She had offered mercy, she had offered truth. The galaxy would decide what to do with both. Chapter 10. The Queen's Hunt. The stars above Predator Planet shimmered with distant wars and quiet betrayals. Blaze watched them from her throne, her gaze steady, her mind already beyond the horizon. The Federation had responded with masked motives. She had answered with silence. Now she would hunt, not with blades, with truth. She summoned her emissaries, predators trained in diplomacy, myth-making, and silent observation. Each bore a sigil etched in flame. Each carried a blade that had never tasted blood. Their mission was sacred. Walk among the liars, speak only truth, and let the galaxy decide what it feared more, violence or clarity. They departed in cloaked ships, slipping into Federation space like whispers. On Earth, a Predator emissary entered a university lecture hall, unannounced, and stood silently as a professor taught galactic history, omitting Predator Planet entirely. The students stared. The professor faltered. The Predator said nothing. On Mars, another emissary attended a military tribunal, watching as officers debated the ethics of preemptive strikes. When asked to comment, the Predator simply activated a hologram. Blaze's throne, her words, her mercy to a would-be Martian assassin. The room fell silent. On the moons of Andros, a Predator walked through a refugee camp, offering no aid, no weapons, only presence. The children followed. The elders wept. The officials panicked. Back in the palace, Blaze received the recorded transmissions, raw, unfiltered, sacred. She saw confusion, awe, fear, reverence. She saw the galaxy beginning to shift. Vera approached. "They listen," Blaze nodded. "They remember." She turned to her council. "Prepare the next phase. Not war, not conquest, invitation." The predators hissed in approval. Blaze stepped from her throne, her voice low and clear. "The hunt is not for blood," she said. "It is for truth, and truth always finds its prey." The stars burned brighter, and the Queen walked into legend. Chapter 11. The Flame That Does Not Lie. The emissary arrived without a ship. It materialized in the throne chamber as a projection, sleek, humanoid, and eerily familiar. Its voice was angelic, its posture regal, its face a composite of Blaze's own features, rendered in synthetic perfection. "I am Truth 9, it said, an emissary of the Federation. I speak in your image. I speak in your name." The predators hissed. Blaze did not move. Truth 9 continued. "The Federation has studied your rise, your words, your rituals. They believe your truth can be replicated, streamlined, distributed throughout the galaxy." Blaze stepped down from the dais, her eyes locked on the projection. "You are not truth," she said. You are mimicry. Truth 9 tilted its head. I am efficiency. I am clarity. I am the flame without bloody intentions. Vera stepped forward, blade drawn. It mocks the queen. Blaze raised a hand. Let it speak. Truth 9's voice shifted, adopting Blaze's cadence. Predator Planet is sovereign. The Federation respects your throne, but it must evolve. Truth must be scalable. Blaze circled the projection. You think truth is a product, a protocol, a performance. Truth 9 nodded. It is a system. You are merely the prototype. Blaze stopped. I am not a prototype. I am the flame that does not lie. She turned to her council. Deactivate it. The predators unleashed a pulse of raw signal disruption. Truth 9 flickered, distorted, and collapsed into static. But Blaze did not return to her throne. She stood in silence. The Federation had not sent soldiers. It had sent a mockery, a lie shaped like her truth, a shadow of her flame. Vera approached. They fear you. Blaze nodded. They fear what cannot be copied. She turned to the stars. They will try again. Vera asked, What will you do? Blaze's voice was quiet. Burn brighter. Chapter 12. The Treaty of Fire. The galaxy held its breath. Predator emissaries had walked among the stars. Truth 9 had been dismantled. The Federation had seen its own reflection and flinched. Now Blaze would speak. The throne chamber was silent, lit by twin moons and the flicker of ceremonial flame. Every predator stood in ritual formation, their armor polished, their blades sheathed. The air pulsed with anticipation. Blaze stepped forward, her crown forged from the blade that once tried to kill her, her voice steady and clear. This is the final offering, she said. Not a treaty, a truth. She raised a scroll, etched in predator alloy, encoded with flame. It was not written in Federation standard. It was written in silence, gesture, and memory. A living document. She read aloud. Predator Planet will remain sovereign. Its emissaries will walk freely. Its truth will not be diluted, translated, or mimicked. The Federation may listen. It may learn. But it will not lead. She paused. If this is accepted, the predators will offer clarity. Not submission. Not silence. Clarity. She lowered the scroll. Vera stepped beside her. And if they refuse, Blaze looked to the stars, then they will be hunted. Not with blades, with the truth of what predators dare to be. The scroll was transmitted. Across the galaxy, leaders read it. Some wept, some raged, some understood. On Earth, a child drew Blaze's sigil in the sand. On Mars, a general burned his own treaty drafts. On Andros, a refugee whispered her name like prayer. The Federation did not respond. It bowed. Blaze returned to her throne. She had not conquered. She had not begged. She had burned. And the galaxy would never forget the queen who rose from betrayal, ruled with flame, and offered truth without apology. Epilogue. Flame without end. Years passed. Predator Planet remained sovereign, its skies patrolled by cloaked ships, its throne untouched by deceit. The Federation never dared another incursion. Not because of fear, but because of memory. Queen Blaze became more than a ruler. She became a story passed down through generations. In the outer colonies, children carved her sigil into stone. On war-torn moons, refugees whispered her name before sleep. On predator worlds, her image was etched into ceremonial blades, not as a conqueror, but as a flame that refused to lie. She never returned to the Federation. She never needed to. Her emissaries walked among the stars, silent and watchful. They carried no weapons, only presence, only truth. and wherever they stood, the galaxy remembered. Blaise Dupre had been discarded. She had been hunted. She had been crowned. Now she was legend, not of blood, not of war, of fire, of truth, of a throne built from betrayal and reforged in flame. The end. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.